Guys, we are starting with Gerrit 3.13. So first, okay, first thank you for spending your lunchtime talking about Gerrit 3.13, which is great. So that is really passion. I like that. Really deep passion. That's good. And actually, I was discussing with Marty. So as you can see, we have, let's say, a slightly gray share than the picture that you saw before in the presentation. And why are we doing this? Because we like it. Because we like it. At the end of the day, that's your job. But if you like it, you do it, right? That's it. So we also like spending our lunchtime talking about Gerrit 3.13. That's why. On Sunday as well. Oh my gosh. Okay, we'll skip this one. You know about me. Okay, so Gerrit 3.13, numbers and contributions. So this is because I like numbers, and I believe they matter, right? So there are lots of people that say, when you're in open source, how many contributions have done? One. Okay, so this is the Gerrit 3.13 in numbers. And as you can see, and I will show the other graph as well, we see an increase of contribution, which is good, right? So Gerrit 3.13 has a lot more stuff than, for instance, in 3.12, right? So you see 129 changes that are being committed, and they've been done by 46 different people from 13 companies, which is great. So still shows that the project is alive, is healthy, and we keep on having new contributions and new companies, organizations contributing to it. And I have to say, compared to the last release, where there was not so many changes in Gerrit, but a lot of changes in plugins, this release is exactly the opposite, right? So we got a lot of changes in Gerrit core, about half of the changes are in plugins, right? Talking about the percentages, as you can see, it's confirmed that Google still does 62%, 63% of the changes in Gerrit core. And this release was a lot about UI changes. And there is, where I write there, Wikimedia, but actually there is one guy that basically does everything there, that is Paradox. Did a fantastic, amazing job. He's working a lot in the UI. And I believe they've done a fantastic job in 3.13 on UI. They did a lot of improvements. And if you guys from GitButter want to contribute, you're really good with UI, we need you. We need you, absolutely. I remember there was one of the Gerrit User Summit where Sean was saying, we are engineers and we are backend engineers. And you can tell from the UI, that sucks, right? So we need people with creativity, right? And Martin is too young yet, right, for doing it, but he's very creative, for instance. But we need creative people that really wants to create usable interface. So we accept contributions even more.
To learn what Gerrit is first, understand it, internalize it properly.
Next hackathon, let's do it in Berlin. There we go. And I believe Scott will definitely join. You will join as well. Yeah. Plugins will still do 61% of the contributions, but SAP 8%, Wikimedia 6%, Google, NVIDIA, yes, 5%. So that is you starting changing the company from one to the other. Before it was Qualcomm, now it's NVIDIA. But it's good because NVIDIA has been using Gerrit for so many years. I believe that before you, nobody really contributed much before you. So that's good to see NVIDIA also contributing now.
But it's not all new either. We got Aditya Shaquille, who's
Ah, yeah.
Is that the Quota plugin?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Good stuff. I like it. And also Qualcomm keeps on confirming with this dedication. Top 10, actually, I'm not the top one. I'm really proud to say that I'm not the top one. The top one is everyone else. And I really like that. So the majority of the contributions were done by everyone else, right? It means that it's a healthy ecosystem. So the majority of the code is written by a number of different people from different companies, right? And then from the one they are named, right? Of course, I'm the one who wins against Edwin, not because I did more on Gerrit code than Edwin, but just because we also manage the CI/CD and the releases, and you got a lot of boring stuff there. But it still needs to be done, right? So contribution, thank you.
That's real stuff that
yeah,
we really need.
exactly. People say, oh no, I just want to do the cool changes. An open source project is everything. You also need to do documentation, releases, CI/CD, all this stuff. Otherwise, the product doesn't come out of the door, right? And so we are dedicated today. We continue to be. Then Edwin, Paradox, rock solid. Militin from Google, Drew, Thomas, Matthias, Ben, Sasha, Camille, and so on, right? I'm really hopeful that next time, let's say some of those guys that will show up also on the summits. With regards to companies overall, on the top last 12 months, basically almost the same as last year. So Google with 39%, GerritForge with 27%, and then SAP, Wikimedia, Qualcomm. Next year it will be NVIDIA, I'm sure. Yeah, in the top 10 organization are contributing to Gerrit. But again, there is not a single organization that is doing over 50% of the contribution. So again, it's a healthy ecosystem. Let's say, case scenario, if one of those big will decide to drop Gerrit, the other will continue. And that's exactly the sense of open source. So I was impressed by the keynote, how many people are talking about the migration out of VMware. Why is that? Just because it wasn't open source. That's the point. And then one company acquires another, and they get crazy, and they change the license. They want to overcharge you, and then you need all this migration. But Gerrit doesn't exist and will never happen because the code is code. And anyone can get the code and continue, right? So this is I like this graph because it shows both the core and the plugins. And as you can see that even if when you think that the core is going down, actually from Gerrit 3.12 and 3.13, the changes on core, they're going up. And maybe it was a little bit slowed down on plugins, and then it will go up again. But we still have every single release, 1.6 thousand, the peak was last year of changes. And as Tony mentioned, a change is not something that you do, fix, another fix, yeah, change a line, under the line. No, every change is a lot of work. A lot of work, a lot of reviews, a lot of feedback, a lot of thinking, a lot of testing. So 1,600 changes in 12 months is a lot. It's really a lot because all the single pieces of code really matter, right? So how do you upgrade to Gerrit 3.13? So how many of you are on 3.12? Nobody? 3.11? 3.11, okay. So you can upgrade directly from 3.11 as well, right? From 3.10, not really, unless you're already on Java 21. If you're already on Java 21, okay, then you can do as well. So, but from 3.12 and 3.13 is super duper easy because there are no changes on the schema, no changes on the index, super easy, piece of cake, right? You basically just replace the war and the plugins, you restart, done, right? And even if there are a lot of changes, downgrading is also possible and with absolutely no downtime. So if you have a highly available setup, you can upgrade without downtime, you can upgrade without downtime. So, which is great. It gives you peace of mind. And if you guys have more than 2 nodes, you go 3, 4, or 5, we go 5 for instance, 5 sites, just go and get one leg out of the production traffic, upgrade 3.13, and get some of the user use it. That's it. And if that doesn't work, you downgrade it. That's it, right? And it's very easy to go forward and back, so don't be scared. And if you want, you can even run side by side for weeks or months. In our case, we are multi-site, so we typically do that even if there are schema changes or index changes. We just do it. Unless they are incompatible NodeDB changes that we typically don't do, right? So as a community, we don't do incompatible changes. When we do, we make sure that the new release is able to read the old format and the new format as well, in a way that to allow canary releases. So a small demo now of the upgrade. Can you see the screen? Okay, so this is Gerrit. Unfortunately, I cannot do switch, but I will do like this. So this is Gerrit 3.12, as you can see there, right, down there. So I'm gonna start the upgrade. Let me move this one on the top. There we go. Can you see these? Oh, the colors are awful. Yeah, blue.
Black on black.
But you can see the white, and you can see the green. So forget about the blue. I really don't care about the blue, okay? So on this one, maybe you should increase the font a little bit more. Better, okay? So on this one, I will just stay like this. There we go. So as you can see, I've got 3.12 running. Let me also increase the font on this one. As you can see, I love the Gerrit User Summit 2025, right? I create a bunch of changes on this Gerrit server with a simple script, right? So there are so many over there where I do a lot of operations. And this is, again, 3.12.2. Then I've got a little bit of changes on top because we haven't released 3.12.3 yet. So for upgrading, I just set a simple script here, and I'm going to show you the upgrade script. What it's doing, so I have a highly available setup here. So actually what you see on the UI is just a HA proxy that will go two different nodes working at the same time. I just did a little upgrade function. What I do is I'm basically just getting the new release. In this case, I'm using, if you want to replicate this test setup, this is just the test setup of the high availability plugin. So if you go to high availability, you go to source test Docker, that's exactly this setup. What I'm doing, I basically just make the node healthy. I'm creating just a health check fail. Then I'm waiting for just for HA proxy to wait to be really recognized as healthy. Otherwise, I've got some 500s on the UI. Then I just kill one node, shut down, and then I'm creating, right? Then I'm doing a Docker compose kill the Gerrit node, compose up, sleeping 1 second, and just removing the health check fail, and then I'm waiting for this one to render. That's it. And then as you can see, I'm upgrading the first node, sleep 5, upgrading the second node. Easy? So no reindex, no offline, no online, nothing. Super easy. So shall we run it? Demo effects. So typically when I do this demo, they fail, which is good because at least you see that it's real. It's not a recorded thing, right? But there we go. Starting the dance. So why is this one is doing? I want to show you that actually I can do things, right? So, and I can go on this one. Do we do it? Oh, verify -1. Shall we merge it anyway? What do you think? Should we do it? Let's go for it, yeah. And this one, let's send, let's submit this one. We can also maybe create a new change. So go to browse, projects, repositories. Let's go to these Goose 2025, create change. Say, what do we put as a message to this change? What do you think? ASDF. Okay? There we go. Okay, robot comments and supported. Why is that? We'll find out. So this is the only thing that is really you need to be careful of. So even if I'm upgrading Gerrit backend, so now basically both of the Gerrit backends are up and running. What is happening is that now the APIs, they are in version 3.13. And you will learn from Tony that there is a breaking change and robot comments are unsupported. So they are not supported.
The UI is still the old.
The UI, because the UI is cached by the browser, is still 3.12, right? Do refresh. Is it really 3.12? Oh, no, it's 3.13. There we go. So the only thing that you need to be careful, and maybe we should do maybe a note on the release notes that if you do this rolling upgrade, you need to be careful, and until, let's say, all the people that got their local cache cleared re-enable the robot comments, for instance. So in a way that you won't see that pop up. You wait, let's say, overnight, all the nodes upgraded, then you can assume that the next day people will now have the old UI in cache, and then the next day you enable them again, okay? But from the point of view of the operation, apart from this hiccup, and I did explicit, so to show you that it's real, right? And you will see that we are up and running actually with the new version, and I've created both nodes, okay? One and the second. There is another script for doing downgrade, and you will see that it's exactly the same thing, okay? So super easy, don't be scared, and careful on testing, and of course, keep in mind that some of the people may have still the old UI. I believe Vazdev mentioned that yesterday. They had the same issue with some other features, but it was the same.
This is not unusual for
not as
any
usual.
upgrade. Yeah,
I believe we should fix it though, because it's something that will keep on happening in Gerrit, and we will need to make sure that Gerrit admins, they don't have to become crazy for doing this, right? Okay, so up to you.
So yeah, just a quick overview of some of the changes that are going into 3.13. So as you've seen, we are in RC2 version. I think we will be releasing RC3 tomorrow.
Yeah, we really want to do the JGit bump. We'll see if we can make it.
We try to get the JGit bump up. So yeah, so the native Docker images have been upgraded to these new versions of Linux that you can see. This is usually happening every time there is a major release upgrade. We also upgrade the underlying Linux versions. But let's get to Gerrit specifically. So you probably have seen this in the Gerrit already. There is this new UI feature that was behind a feature flag in the past, and now has made it to the UI by default, so you no longer get to configure it, you no longer have to configure it. Basically, will help you with AI prompting of code review. So you basically get a little URL that you can click, and then you can get a prompt which is very, very rich and explicitly crafted to make the most out of some LLMs, Gemini and GPT specifically, out there, and you get to ask for help for the commit message specifically. You can ask it for improvements, security concerns that might be lurking in your code. And it's just like a useful step to go through in both workflows as a developer, but also as a reviewer, with all the caveats that we mentioned yesterday about not just delegating AIs to do code reviews for you. But this is actually proven to be quite useful. I believe you can also decide what the prompt actually is, so you can tune it to your specific needs.
Yeah, there is going to be the last talk of the day if you're still alive. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the AI features in Gerrit.
Okay, so let's skim through this. This one has been quite annoying for a long time. If you wanted to move someone from reviewers to CC or vice versa, you actually had to remove the user first, and then you actually had to re-add it to the different field. This is now conveniently being done by a drag and drop. I think this is also a feature from Paradox. So yeah, very appreciated and useful. Going again into 13. Project labels. I don't know if you guys know what labels are, or if you ever had to configure them, but it was long due. So in the past, if you had to create a project label, you actually had to edit the project config, which you had to painfully clone the project, go to the meta config, create it. Probably you would make mistakes or typos. The tabbing wasn't going, you would, because these changes were going to be validated when you push them to Gerrit, and there was really room for error. It was just a bad experience. Now you get a UI, proper panel in Gerrit that you can just go and conveniently define your labels without having to go and open the engine behind. So this is really useful. You also now get a nice UI for creating submit requirements. If you guys, how many of you know what submit requirements are? Okay, cool. So most of you, so basically in the past, things have been, so the submittability of a change was driven by the behavior of the label. So labels and submittability were intertwined. So you could say, for example, that a change was going to be submittable only if you would get a +1 on a certain label that you would define. And you could have defined the behavior of those labels. Now the labels are just labels, and the submittability of a certain change is defined by submit requirements. So these two concerns have been split. But you had to create submit requirements again in that cumbersome way by just editing the project config, and it was just difficult and error prone. This is now you get a UI to do so, which will also check when you submit for the validity of the submission that you're doing. You finally can delete groups in 3.13. This was a long-awaited feature. It's a really big deal because in the past, believe it or not, once a group was created, you had to stick with it for the rest of your life. Now you get to remove it with the only caveat that if that group is referenced in any of the ACLs, of course you can't delete it. So if you first reshape your ACLs so that they are no longer dependent on that group, then that group is effectively removable, and you can do so. There is also a REST API that allows you to do that. The UI is just leveraging that REST API. I don't believe there is an equivalent SSH command to do that. I can always be added if needed. If anyone wants to contribute, maybe that's the first one that you can do.
Can I just?
Yeah.
So is that the delete group available for everybody or just admins?
No, actually, good point. There's a new capability that has been added, the delete group capability that you will now find in your projects. So you will assign that capability to whoever you want.
Is there a way to find out where the group is used, if it's still used?
There are some APIs that not, so the answer is not in an easy way. The way I would do that would be to browse. There are certain APIs that can expose you. Probably you wouldn't be able to do it in an easy way in a big installation.
Yeah, I believe that this is really something that needs fixing on delete group. So because if you try to delete a group and there is an ACL, doesn't do it, it doesn't give you any clue. First is if she has done it or not. So you just see that hasn't done anything, and then you realize, oh, someone is referring to. So I believe what we'll need to fix here is that the REST API should say 400 or a 429 or whatever, and give a JSON output that says, because it's referenced here, right?
Yeah, also because I believe the heavy lifting of checking that the group is actually used is done anyway. Yes. So it's just a matter of surfacing that information to you.
Yeah, it might be nice in general to have on the groups display a list of projects that use it.
Yeah, yes. Because at the moment, the only way would be basically browsing through the ACLs in different ways, and it's just not feasible. Yeah, so second contribution for anyone who wants to. This is very UI oriented. Okay. So this is the last one I'm going to talk about before I pass the ball to Luca again, and this is the introduction of a new predicate, search predicate, which is called so first the problem. So there might be cases where you are trying to get a change from the index, and that change has is for some reason corrupted. So he has some problems. So Gerrit tries to load the change from NodeDB, and he can't do it because of XYZ reasons, right? There are some cases that are more frequent than others. So this is a little bit annoying because what happens is that if you're getting, for example, a page of changes, and then some of those changes, say for example, your page size is 10, you're reading these changes from the index, and then if one of those changes is ultimately not loadable because of some meta ref corruptions, that you end up with a page that is actually smaller and shorter than that.
Yeah, I wanted to add that actually it's a lot more likely to happen when you got multi-primary. And it's not really corruption. It means that Gerrit, for some reason, can't read the change. So I'm looking at James because we discussed over email with James. So the situation could be that for whatever reason, you will go and complain with AWS, but here EFS did some caching, right? So in that case, you could have multiple primaries. They are looking at the same EFS. Even if you disable all the NFS cache, EFS is not a disk, right? It's a service, and AWS gives you some delay, whatever. And there is no way to fix it. So in that case, if you create a change on node A, and you look for that change on node B, you may actually sometimes see the change, but the change is not there yet because it's just not visible, right?
Yeah.
So before you were looking at something and then you do the REST API, the change is not there, you're failing the build, whatever, you're getting crazy. Now, if, let's say, you really need full consistency, you need Gerrit to check if what has been returned from the index really corresponds to what is in disk, you add in 313 is consistent. So it means that this predicate is expensive, of course, and is also rated as expensive in Gerrit search evaluation, so it means it's done as last, right? But whatever is given to you as a result is now verified with consistency of what is seen on NodeDB. And if that is not the case, that NodeDB is not there, hidden until it's visible. So this gives a lot more, let's say, consistent results for instance, CI scripts in a multi-parameter environment. So it's not just corruption, could be that you just don't see it yet.
Yeah, it could be a temporary replication delay or any, but basically, you don't want to use it for every workflow that you have out there because obviously it's really expensive. I don't remember the exact numbers, but this is adding at least 20% increase. Well, obviously it depends on your file system and etc.
File system, many things.
But for certain workflows where you really want to make sure that what the index is giving you is also what's on NodeDB, then you can use this predicate. Luca?
Okay, so and now let's get to the HTTP password. How many of you likes HTTP password? The way that Gerrit managed until now. And I need my glasses somewhere. There we go. So first, do you use Git over HTTP? Raise your hand. 2, 3. Do you use Git over SSH? Raise your hand. Okay, so I do understand why you're using Git over SSH, and I do agree. And until now, there was basically no way to replace SSH keys with something that is secure, with over HTTP. Not because the SSL protocol is not safe, it is safe, but the problem is that Gerrit was having two problems. The first one is that the HTTP password did not have any expiration until now. So someone could generate an HTTP password, but if the company policy is that you need to rotate it every month or every year or every 2 years, there was no way of enforcing this. Whilst with SSH you can, right? So with the SSH you can say, listen, my keys expire, and you can use SSH with X509, and that will basically stop working if you don't rotate them. And the second problem is that rotating credentials over HTTP was just impossible. Because I believe I discussed with Martin, would say that he used a workaround of using 2 different users. So you use a kind of AB user or blue-green user for doing this rotation, but that's clearly a workaround. Whilst with SSH you could, right? So you could have as many SSH keys as you want, and then of course you start creating a new key until you update all the old jobs, the old keys are still valid, and then you remove them. So thankfully to SAP, they did a fantastic job to fix this, right? And the way they did was first discussing with the community, right? And we discussed and we say, we all have this problem, right? And we all want to fix it. There were some initial changes. They were trying to do a hacky solution. We say, I'm sorry, we need to do it properly because you don't do hacks with security, because if you do hacks with security, hackers are cleverer than you, more clever than you, and they will find another way around. So we did it properly and they did it properly. And from 3.13, you can still use the old-style HTTP passwords, but they are deprecated, so you will have a big warning there. And then as soon as you start regenerating the password, the old ones, they go, and you use the new system. The new system works in this way. So it's similar to the previous in terms of generation, but it's not called password anymore, it's called token. And that, believe it or not, it's just for avoiding your security people to annoy you. Because if you say, I use HTTP passwords, no, you shouldn't, because it is explicitly forbidden in the policy. I say, I use API key token, short-lived, well-scoped. Oh, that's okay. So that's it, but it is the old-style password with a lot of power. First, you can have more than one with a friendly name, good. Second, you can expire them. Yes, which is good, yeah. So this is extremely important. So if you want to convince your manager to allocate budget to migrate to 3.13, you just give this one. They will say, take a picture of this slide. You will get a green light tomorrow, right? Then another one that is very important. So because, of course, you may be running below 3.12 and you want to do the steps by not just doing all the different releases, you want to rely on offline reindexing. There is a useful optimization for improving the performance of your offline reindexing. I don't know if it was you, Martin, or someone from SAP, maybe SAP. SAP, they realized that actually during the offline reindexing, there was a lot of contention on the writing on the H2 caches. They said, actually, if you just don't write H2 caches, then it's going to be so much faster. So they increased a lot the concurrency. And that it means that you can run offline reindexing a lot faster. Bearing in mind that, of course, your caches will be slightly outdated, but caches are not supposed to be, let's say, always up to date. As long as they've got something, that is fine, right? And that they are able to improve a lot the off-library index. And finally, after only 7 releases, we say goodbye to Prolog, right? So it means that if you still have some Prolog, you upgrade to 3.13, Prolog is going to be disabled. They are not working anymore. However, we still give you a last chance if you want to enable it again, you can. You can. Don't do it, please. Don't do it. How many of you use Prolog still in production? One. Please do something. With 3.13, you can still enable it, but remember to enable it again, otherwise you won't be able to use it anymore.
That's system-wide?
It's global. It's global. You cannot do per project. It's global, right? Yeah, yeah. So one thing to mention, so if you're still using Prolog, remember that in Gerrit 3.13, but even in previous releases, the support for Prolog is really kind of a son of a lesser god, right? Because many things related to Prolog, they don't work anymore anyway. And Gerrit internally takes your Prolog rule, and instead of creating the old style submit record, creates a kind of surrogate to submit requirements. But many things don't work. So I saw clients that were saying, oh, I would stick with Prolog. I say, that's not working, that's not working, that's not working. Can you fix it? They say, no, it's deprecated. I say, I can tell you that it's written there in the document that you shouldn't use it, and this one is not working. If you're telling me, can you fix it? The answer is no, I'm sorry. Because as I mentioned yesterday, functionality means that it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to work in deprecated mode with a lot of limitation. If you say, can you please upgrade it to maximum speed and maximum power? No, I won't do it because the code is doing what the documentation says, and the documentation says the right thing, so you shouldn't use it, right? That's it. Farewell to robot comments. You've seen this one in the UI, okay? So if you are using robot comments, say goodbye in 3.13. And the main reason is very simple. So robot comments, you should read them as AI comments. They're just polluting the repo, really polluting, doing stuff that most of the times doesn't make sense, right? So I'm going to talk about that at the last talk of the day. But in my experience, working with clients that have been using AI for many years, we've got some clients that have been using AI at least for 5 years for automatic reviews. They were generating something that was insane, right? So changes with 1 million comments, of course, was a big change. But of those 1 million comments, maybe 1% made some sense, the other, no. So they were just basically blowing up everything and say, it doesn't really make sense, right? So robot comments are gone for good. If you ask me, can I do a support contract with GerritForge and receive robot comments? The answer is no. They are gone, right? There are some other ways of doing the same thing using the checks API. And they are breaking changes. So even though there are no schema changes and there are no index changes, there are still some functionality changes. And this is, I'm going back to the discussion about what is breaking, right? Because we define some common sense timeouts. They are much better than before. However, this is breaking because, to give you some example, before the transfer timeout was infinite, right? And now it's 1 minute. It means that if before you had an operation that was taking 5 minutes to complete, it may happen with your repo. I believe that is definitely going to happen, right? And then now you say upgrade to 3.13, nothing works. I'm expecting people writing this on the mailing list, right? But let's put it this way. I believe defaults should make sense, and these defaults make more sense. And we highlight them in the release notes, and there is this presentation, and we'll record it, we will publish, so just people should know that if they want to put infinite timeout, they should do it explicitly before they migrate to 3.13. And that's just an example. There are others related to, yeah, maybe Tony, do you want to give the microphone up there?
Does that include the...
Yes.
So does this 1 minute timeout include cloning a repository? Because most of my clones take more than 1 minute.
No, transfer is more inactivity. If they take 1 minute, we do nothing. I mentioned his case because it got such a big repo that may happen actually that Gerrit is thinking for a minute and it's not doing anything, right? And that will impact that.
So it's timeouts during silence.
It is a slightly different. It's complicated. It's a slightly different level of timeout. It's not timeout on the network protocol, it's timeout on the transfer of the data in Git, right? But it's similar to a timeout. Let's call it this way, similar to a timeout. It's not the total time to do it, right?
Okay.
Similar to a timeout. Because of course, if you got, I don't know, gigabytes to transfer, it will take more than a minute, of course. But for details, go to the release notes as well.
I'm not sure if you were here for my talk, but it was, I think it's related to the timer, like every time it sends bytes and every time it receives bytes. So on the sending side, for example, if you're sending lots of objects, and even then you're doing it potentially in chunks. So after each send, that timeout is being reset, I believe.
Yeah, and we fixed a bug in 3.13 where the idle timeout wasn't being honored for.
No,
Git.
it's 3.12.
Is it already in 3.12?
It's not 3.13, it's 3.12.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So you get that.
Then there is an interesting experiment that I actually quite like it. I'm a bit sad there is nobody in Google showcasing this one to us. But Google has developed a super powerful feature in Gerrit 3.13. It's called Gerrit Flows. Gerrit Flows is basically a generalization of what is already possible today with the ITS star plugins. Has anyone used the ITS Jira or ITS RTC or ITS Badzilla, so the issue tracker integration? Okay. The issue tracker integration was cool because it had the concept of actions and flows of actions. So you could say in the ITS Jira plugin, if a change is merged, go and set the ticket in ready for testing. Or whenever a change gets, I don't know, -1, change the ticket of this one or add a comment to this one using this soy template, whatever. So I had a lot of logic of automating the rest of the overall organization automatically based on changes, right? So Google, they took that concept and made it more abstract and powerful. So now you can define in Gerrit the concept of flows, and flows could be anything. So you could say, for instance, if, let's say, this specific file is getting added, then invite this reviewer and put it to the attention set. Or when it's getting removed, then you can remove it, right? Or other stuff by saying, for instance, there was a client that was last week was asking, can I apply patch set lock whenever someone is giving me this label? And that was not possible, but with flows, I can define a flow. When someone is giving that label, then I apply a patch set lock. And that is done by Gerrit automatically out of the box. You don't have to code it, right? There is also a nice UI for doing it. And you can use very complex operations there. The only constraint is that because the flows are a generic concept, they are not really integrated with Jira. They're not integrated with your issue tracker system, not integrated with, I don't know, and you name it, a system that you got. You need to implement at least a little script that says what these flows are, right? And it's super easy. I can show you if we got time maybe at the end. Oh, there is a question there.
Sorry, I'm not as familiar with Gerrit. Is this an example of a plugin in the Gerrit ecosystem?
Yeah,
or is this
exactly.
A core Gerrit? It's plugin.
This is a sort of plugin. It's a functionality that Gerrit does, but it's a functionality that is implemented as a concept, but not as API. And then with a plugin or with a script, you can show it. You can use it. And that is powerful because it means on a Gerrit perspective, it's the same, but then you can integrate with your own system. So what I'm planning to do is basically to get the ITS plugins deprecated and just re-implement these ones on top of the flows, which will make more sense, right?
Yeah, this seems really cool. I was wondering if you were planning to do something like this with Gerrit Hub for integration with GitHub's issues, so you could have flows that automatically closed, tagged whatever issues in there.
Absolutely. And the good thing is that in the ITS plugins, the problem is that was relying on configuration on the server. This is a service. So it means that on Gerrit Hub, as you mentioned, so anyone could say, oh, I want to automate some workflow, my issues on my project. I don't have to do anything on GerritHub.io, you do it, right? I will just give you the mechanism, and it's super easy for me to integrate the GitHub flows into Gerrit in this way. And you could do it. I really like it. So I'm really hopeful that maybe I will reach out to the author of these changes, that actually is Edwin, say, Edwin, can you get some budget to do a short remote demo of this one on how you guys did it? Because this is great. It's really great functionality. I like it.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay. You can see lots of stuff.
Martin wanted to say
Martin,
something.
you want to say something?
Well, as I work, I just wanted to say that many plugins could be rethought now that this feature is, the owners, reviewers, ITS.
Reviewers as well, yeah. You don't need reviewers anymore.
It's a little bit like a self-service hook, it sounds like, but looks like it's defined on a per change. Like, so are there ways to define them so that they get applied to every change?
Yeah, we can ask Edwin. I don't know yet, yeah, because the point is they haven't announced it on the mailing list, and because as I said, I like being a release manager because in that way you can read the code. I enjoyed a lot reading the code, and I understood this one not from Google, but from the code. And whenever people say, how did you manage to understand how it works without documentation? I say, because they coded. The code works, right? And the code is telling you what it's doing. And I read from the code and from the commit message. Edwin wrote fantastic commit
The example that was given in the commit message for this change, well, it was actually a series of changes, but the example that was given was to add reviewers only after ACI has validated the change, because then the reviewer is not going to waste time reviewing a change that will get a -1, later on, right? So,
which is great, yeah. And then some other experiments, interesting. So asynchronous submit requirements, which is great. So we got rid of product because it was slow, and then we rebuilt all the product logic as submit requirements, and what a surprise, now submit requirements are slow. So it means that we were a little bit too simplistic in saying we got rid of prologue and then everything is going fast, which is not true. Prologue was going slow just because it was doing a lot of things, right? And now that we have submit requirements, there are a lot of things. Submit requirements are slow. So at least for not impacting the user experience, now there is the ability to do the asynchronous evaluation of submit requirements. So at least from a visual perspective, the people can see the change, and the code for submit requirements, they can go in background, which is great, right? So, but can create some kind of misunderstanding. People, imagine that you've got a submit requirement that is very complex and it's very slow. People may think the submit requirements are not showing up. They're gone. Where are my submit requirements? Come on, they're coming. So maybe I believe we should put some kind of computing or something, some message, that visual messages say, don't panic, your submit requirements, they are still there, right? And that's it. That was the last one. Questions? What do you think? Up to you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about a lot of the new UI. I administrated Gerrit server for a while, and I remember the pain of editing all of my config in config files. I thought it was interesting on your slides. You had a function field which is deprecated, and I wondered whether you were planning to, for example, hide that in the UI when it had its default value, which is the suggested value nowadays.
You mean the function label? Yeah. So that's deprecated because, as we said, the submit requirement now drives the submittability of the change. It's still there. I still believe it's honored until now, even though it's deprecated. There is a job that's been added to migrate label functions to submit requirements. I think this has been there for quite a few versions now, from 3.10 maybe. So probably, yeah, it's there because it still has some value. At some point, it will probably be removed from the UI. But running the migration job properly is something that would make sense. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah, from Nuno.
In terms of the HTTP password, how it is the token have an owner, and there is any kind of communication that that token is going to expire at X amount of time?
Thank you for the question. Yes, it is. So there are some warnings that are emitted when the token is near expiry, right? So you will get some additional warning. I believe they are injected in the response somehow. I'm not sure how Git will see them. Will show them. I should, because it kind of send on the side, so you should see them in the output in theory. With regards to REST API, I don't believe there will be, but we'll see. I need to check, but there was something in the warning. So I read the changes, some of the changes that were introduced in this warning when the token was near expiry. And there are also some visual feedback that you see in the UI. So and the tokens are associated to the user. So of course you need to be that user, right, to see that warning.
Okay. So the user.
And it's visible. So it's visible on the user panel. You will see when the token will expire, and there is a visual feedback that says the token is near expiry.
And is it capable? So the user would probably better to have like multiple emails, because sometimes it's like a system account, but still needs to have emails, and those are going to be missed. So somebody needs to check, or a distribution list needs to be checked.
I believe there is an API to check also the validity and if that is still valid or not valid, when it will expire. So for users, of course, you're relying on users reading that information. For service accounts, you will need to put some automation in place to check if the token ever expires.
But you will read both all the emails that are set on that
I don't remember if I sent you all of them. I believe that the thing that will make sense will be the primary email, but I'm not sure. I need to check the change yet. Any other question? No? Okay. Thank you. Who's next? Let's have a look if we got a break.